time on Kustom Works, bonus episode, more Automatron build. Why is the build going on so long? Why is there so many videos? Because the build went on so long. Let's get to the workshop, but the one in the past. Right, moving on to the engine detailing. My God, the amount of detail, not just in the engine, but on the whole car is insane on this. I made a lot of stuff. So on this, you can see that already we've painted these rocker covers to look like polished aluminium. The distributor's done here. This large sort of finned thing that was meant to look like some massive water pump on the front of the engine, some part of the cooling system. I cannot even tell you how long that took to make. Every individual piece is a piece of die bond cut, shaped, bonded, fiberglassed over, smoothed out. These things took hours, with no exaggeration at all. I can tell you the time that went into building that engine was just ridiculous. Here it is again, hasn't got its trumpets on, but we can see we've got some of the gold down the back. This was finished in a different chrome finish at first, which we ended up changing. Which always gets me a bit, because a lot of the time with a job like this, I made a lot of things that ended up going in the bin or being redone, but it leads nicely to the finished project in the end. And also on here you can see it's where the gear shift runs into the steering box for an incredibly complicated bit of work. More shots of the engine there, looking pretty awesome. Got some leather straps here, and you know, a lot of this car was put together and taken to bits and put together and taken to bits so many times before it was finished. And here's a shot of one of the first times that the balancer for the carbs actually was together and working. Obviously the carbs aren't real. It runs like a big Edelbrock underneath all of that. But just to get all that to work when the engine revved was really, really difficult. There it is again. Later on these were all plated. I made these from scratch using a piece of quite thick aluminium. And then the curve there, that's the rim from a child's bike that was bonded onto there. And then the teeth are from a timing belt so that they mesh together and move together. And then all of this is one piece. There's no clamp here or anything. This is all carved and made. Like I say, all one off. And I copied that from a vintage Bugatti. You can see in this picture, a lot more painting's been done, a lot more detail to the engine, and you can see this like this effect, this aluminium effect on here. You can see these bits off the Daimler Hemi there that look, you know, I just think they finished that bit off really cool. And also all the carbs are nearly finished there. We're still on Mark 1 exhaust, so I don't know if we'll see all parts of the exhaust. So here's another shot of the engine, and like I say, it is getting to the point where it's all painted and finished now. And you know, for anyone who's ever thought all of this is the real deal from like the 1930s in America, I don't think there's any shame in thinking this is real, because even when I was working on it sometimes, in my mind, it seemed like it really was an Arden-headed Hemi. You can see some of the details that were obviously in the front of the engine. Like I say, a lot of work in this part. Pretty much everything you can see there I made from scratch. It really was an absolute labour of love. More engine pictures there. Obviously I was very pleased with the engine on this particular day. And indeed even more pictures of the engine. Okay, so we move on to Automatron's wheels. All I ever wanted to do was make every single bit on the car. So when you look and someone says, what's that? So I made that. What's that? Oh, I made that. You know, the kind of thing. That's all I wanted. So these wheels, I wanted the car to have super skinny front wheels, and I looked at fitting motorbike wheels, but everyone I spoke to said, yes, you can, but it's incredibly dangerous to run the front of the car on motorbike wheels. So what I did, I bought the rim off a motorbike, then drew and laser cut this centre and put these bracings in so there was no deflection, and then welded that to the rim. But that rim was big enough to take the tyres, which are on there, off of the front of an Austin 7. So they gave me that slightly larger diameter, so I didn't want really small skinny wheels on the front. I wanted a decent sized wheel that in diameter was almost the same as the rear wheels, and that's what this gave me. I drew this a few times and I came up with this design, but if you know your hot rods and stuff, you can buy like a Boyd Coddington wheel that looks almost the same as this now, which I thought, I was trying to go for a bit of the Hallebrand look, and I think whoever designed the wheels for Boyd Coddington was also going for that look, and we seemed to come up with a very similar wheel. There we go with the nut cover in the middle, and that's a jam funnel that I bought off of eBay, and a Kilner jam funnel, and they just, to my mind, they look exactly the same as a nut cover. So I got them and then fitted a spinner, and that was it. The nuts were covered. Here we go again, jam funnel in the centre of the wheel. This is the rear wheel. This was actually banded by the company called, oddly enough, Banded Steelers. And when I phoned the bloke up, I think it's a Peugeot rim that's been banded out. He said to me, he said, you must have the measurement wrong for how much you want. The band in this is like 12 inch or something. And he was saying it must be wrong. And I said, no, it's not. This really is as wide as they're going. Them big Mickey Thompson Sportsman's on. He banded them. I had all the bits laser cut, and here they are tacked in the workshop. And these actually went back to him, and he spun them, balanced them, and welded them together. So they were super safe. But those wheels took a long time. A lot of sending bits through the post, a lot of drawing in AutoCAD, a lot of waiting for laser cutting to be done. But in the end, we got there, and by making our own wheels, they've got the perfect offset. That wheel runs perfectly in the centre, so even though it's such a massive wheel, it's not going to damage the bearings or anything. I dare say the axle barely knows anything's changed. There's another shot of the wheel, looking very nice, all in its bare metal. And there is one of the front wheels, all primed and ready to go. I put these raised bits on, which later get a little chrome trim on as well. Here we see the rear of the car. On the rear of the car, this is the cooling system in this section. So there's these two large induction fans, and they run through like a shroud up to 2 mini radiators, and they were supposed to keep the car cool, but it never worked. The car actually runs 3 radiators, and this is one of those things, when you think I want to build a different car, I want to build a car that hasn't got the radiator on the front, and then halfway through building that car you realise, well, the radiator's on the front for a reason, so if you put it anywhere else the car keeps overheating. But we got there in the end, as with everything on this car. Nothing was easy, nothing was quick, it was all really, really difficult. Like I say, we got there in the end. Okay then, so the body of AUTOMATRON. Body of AUTOMATRON. I remember saying to hot rod building legend Lee Cox, we built the chassis up to a point, and I remember saying to him, he was coming and helping me once a fortnight, and we were working on this. And don't forget, at the time I didn't do this as a job, this was just hobby. And I remember saying to him, probably won't be about for 4-8 weeks, and then we'll get back on it once I've done the body. It took me over a year to build the body. I literally thought I'll throw this together in 8 weeks, it'll be easy. How wrong I was. So what on earth is happening there? Just lots of polystyrene insulation glued on, and then I don't know what am I going to do. I've just got to remove the bits I don't need, and then the car I want will be underneath. Wow, already at this point I've built this bit way out because I always wanted it to come round and sweep under, meet the chassis, but show the chassis off. Oh dear. Just, you know, as you're looking at this, I've no more words than you. This is just looks like madness to me as well. And more madness there. And, you know, at this point of building a car, I really do. I glue all that stuff on and I think, what on earth am I doing? This is going to look rubbish. This is never going to work. But as we go through, yeah, a little bit more. See, I had to have the car sort of together as well to get all my clearances in to make sure the body didn't foul anything. And with a few of the bits on the car being finished at this time, I didn't want to get dirty. Probably not the best thing to do. So then, I've not got a massive amount of footage of this, but I did it like, if you remember, back in the series to the first, to the WTF1, I did it the same as that. So all polystyrene, then I went over all of it with plaster, and then I started to pull the lines in, and like I've done recently with the meat wagon, this is sort of UPVC trim because it just holds such a nice line. But even at this point, it wasn't quite right, still looked a bit like a box. Obviously, there was a long, long way to go. Here it is again, engine looks good, car, oh, what is going on? Yeah, a lot of expanding foam, a lot of plaster and stuff, but it's getting there. I say it's getting there, and then we click onto this and we're just back again to expanding foam and polystyrene madness. But if you watch the WTF1 truck films, you know, you see this stuff does come good, oh my lord. Why I got that much plaster and crap all over everything, I'll never know. In fact, I remember cleaning all that up and I thought, why didn't I cover this? But you live and learn. Oh, so we're getting a bit better now. We've got the shape in the back. Again, I've used UPVC to give me hard lines within the plaster, a bit like you'd use like a skim or angle bead if you're plastering in a house. And we've got these two bits here, the two rear quarters that would flank the boot. They just float in midair, and getting those strong enough just to sit there and float was very difficult. In fact, on this car, there are 2 points in front of these wheels, and beyond that, the whole body floats on the back of the car. So there's no mountings, and all of this piece can move and be detailed and just be a thing of beauty without having to have, you know, things like body mounts. So on this picture, obviously, I'm thinking, where am I going to put the windows and doors? Oh my lord. And again, a little bit further on, you can see the windows are too big here. This is too big. The whole roof got a bit more sort of chopped down before the final thing. Yes, more here, more hacking, changing, sculpting. And there's me with a surf form. And I think a spirit level. Now, what I'm doing with that, God knows. You know what, I look back on this, I wonder how it ever all come together. Looks awful. Bottom of the body there is starting to look good though, nice flowing in, and this is a line that stayed right in. To have this door, so it had a curve this way, had a curve this way, and had the convex curve off of that was always things that I really wanted to put in. And I really wanted to put that in. I'm not just saying it because it turned out like that. You've got to believe me, I actually planned this. The car is almost in the shape I wanted it to be, so I covered it in tin foil, because if you put fiberglass over polystyrene, it's like, you know, it's like weighing on snow, it'll just vanish. So I covered it all in tin foil. Finally, I've covered the wheel and the engine in some shrink wrap, and it's time to fiberglass it all. There it is, all fiberglassed, and we've took the masking off. You can see the whole front's braced because this car has nothing in front. The whole firewall and everything, screen are all a separate part. That's me cutting the door out. So make the whole car, cut the door out, and then you've got a really floppy fiberglass door. And there it is. Whoa, a lot of work. Here's me mocking it up to say, well, it's going to hang, and now it's going to have this sort of crazy single hinge mechanism. You can see I put the engineering sign on there. So we're looking at the fuel tank that sits on the back and some of the details that went into that. And This is typical of the details that went into the whole build. So the tank's a gas bottle, it's got 2 bowls, and then it was bodywork, so it all looks smooth. The bowls were from IKEA, but then it needed some lettering on it. So I was at a car boot sale, and for a tenner, I found this. And it's meant to be on a tractor, and it throws grain, something like that. I don't know, it's got like paddles and flaps inside it. But this is the lettering that's on the side of that fuel tank. And I needed this kind of font. There's a certain font on this sort of stuff, lathes, old agricultural machinery, that just really looks so right. So what I did with that, I formed a silicone mould of the whole thing, and then I cast off the lettering, and then I stuck the lettering onto the tank. The letters cast off of here, this is a curved surface. They had just the right curve to fit onto that tank. And I made, that's got the same lettering on the other side, so I had 2 lots and they went on. But I bought that just to take a mould off of those letters, just so that tank looked the real deal. Even at this point, we're building a fiberglass car. There's still plenty you can chop and change, and you can change your mind a million times. It's not with fiberglass and with this technique of building. You haven't got to be dead sure in the initial stage of the project if you've got a general idea. But then as this sat in my workshop, and you know, I was working 5 days a week in the workshop looking at it, I thought, you know, a lot of things I thought, you know what, like, this needs to be different, this window needs to be smaller, this door aperture needs to be smaller, and I found I could really fine-tune that shape working like that. God knows what this picture is. I'm just holding the door there, it's not even on a hinge, but I look pretty pleased with myself. So, in this picture, which just looks like, what is going on there? We've mounted in here, and this is the bar that goes through 2 huge pillar block bearings that hold the door hinge. And at this moment here, we were gluing with filler and just screwing just bits of anything together. If you look, there's a big piece of wood in the door there, just to work out the shape of these huge single hinges that swing. They've got to swing and fit under the seat, so they're not in the car when you're in it, but also they had to swing out, and also, most important, as with everything on this car, it had to look very, very nice. I'd like to say this picture was set up for a laugh, but really I do believe that was my state of mind at the time. This car was hard to build. And then, after all that sanding, and you know, there's just not enough pictures in there to show, but ta-da! It's all in primer and filled, and in the shape we all know, and some of us might even love. There it is together, and this is where this front panel comes in. If you imagine, all the weight of the car, of the body, is held around this central point. All this hangs, all the front hangs. There's no other mountings, but there is massive mountings under there. So this whole windscreen scuttle section was all made from scratch, and here it is sort of part way through, and I wanted this sort of almost rising sun fan thing behind the engine, and then all these bits, which of course is all filled with like a beveled, well, it's not glass but it's acrylic, beveled acrylic goes in all of these. And then when you sit inside the car, you feel like you're in the gun turret of like a Lancaster bomber, something like that. Of course, it's all drilled up the sides, and this whole thing is a single sort of free floating piece within the design. Very difficult to mount, really difficult to make. But, as I keep saying, got there in the end. So in this picture you can see that this car, and it's the way I built it, I wanted it to be very different on both sides. We've actually got the steel hinges made that we took measurements off of our Bondo and wood ones, and we had those laser cut. And you can see that this door is a totally different shape to that, because of course this door comes up to a different side of the engine. This has got all the cooling and stuff, so it's sort of cut off. But I always wanted it that when the doors are open, the doors just look the weirdest of weird shapes. But then when the car's shut, it's not quite as obvious. This to me looks like happy days. There's a lot here that really is, you know, it's the finished car. This is moving towards it being done. Very little was changed with the body. after this point. You can see a lot of the mouldings and body lines are all in there. Also on this, which I've got no footage of, but took me hours, are the covers for the front discs as well. They had a long time to make. And at the rear here, obviously we've not got the tank on or anything here, but because the body splits into two halves, I wanted that sort of reflected in the rear window. And I made it so the body doesn't actually touch at the back. And then there was this rear window with the glass mounted in. And as with everything on this car, it just got so over the top and ridiculous. From wanting to do something a bit different with the window to what we ended up with. Just insane. So here's half the body off of the car. So body paint comes off in two halves, and this is it. It's sitting on its roof, upside down in the garden, probably ready just for hours and hours of body work. Okay then, so that's it for this episode. Although there's going to be, can you believe it, a third episode. I'm calling it the Automaton Trilogy. Well, something like that. But anyway, that's going to be coming up very soon, and that will be, you know, like right to the end of the job and the finished car. Until then, thank you very much and good night. And also, I hate to labour the point, but if you could click subscribe, click the bell icon, and also leave a thumbs up. It does so much for us here, and I don't know, it helps the YouTube algorithm, which I think is some sort of slime with a brain. But anyway, just bow down to that slime with a brain, click that subscribe button, and just help us out with that. Thank you!